Guys, all right, now we are going to go through the how to publish your podcast steps. So as you can see, the first thing I do is I have my episode show notes open, and I have in another tab my podcast host open so that this can be a smooth and streamlined process. I also go ahead and open up my podcast in iTunes. So basically, when I go into my Finder and I click on, my final podcast file, which for me is saved in my subfolder, completed audio, open that up. And I go in, and this is the file that I see. The reason I go into iTunes first is because I want to update all of my file info so that even though I can update this in my podcast host, I just like to make sure that the file info that I'm uploading remains the same and accurate. So I click on the Get Info button. Let me do that one more time to make sure you see. So I click the ellipses, and then I click Get Info. And that's where I make sure that the media kind is listed as a podcast. I click on Artwork, and I scroll down to Add Artwork. And what I'm adding is just my podcast logo. It says resize because it's resized to fit Apple specs. So again, I added in options, I selected podcast as the media kind. In Artwork, I added my logo. And then for details, I'm going to tab back over to my show notes where I have that episode title. Undo. I have that episode title right in front of my face. I'm going to head back over to iTunes and paste in that episode title. One thing I do for space appearances and aesthetics is I shorten the word episode to ep for my episode listing in the podcast app, because I just want to make sure that people can kind of get the gist of the episode and I'm not taking up precious character space with the word episode. So then I go ahead and select OK. My file is now titled and has artwork the way I want it to be. So next thing I do, I go on over to my podcast host. So again, you should have your podcast host open in a tab right next to your show notes with all of the information. Let's go through my show notes. So again, I have the title of that show. I write the summary for the episode, all of the links that we mentioned in that episode, as well as any announcements I want to make, the link to my Facebook group, of course, and that guest Instagram info, because that is what I want people to walk away from the show with, being able to connect with the guest, connect with me, and find all the things that they heard mentioned. So now I head on over to Libsyn. Now, when you first log into your podcast host, you will be in the dashboard section. So this is the landing page. You want to click on content and add new episode. When you do that, it's pretty straightforward. So first thing you'll do, you'll add your media file. So you'll select add file, select populate form with ID3 data, and upload from your hard drive. My episode is saved on my desktop, so I go ahead and upload the file there. Takes a few seconds to get it up there, so we'll just wait for it to finish uploading. I told you guys I was going to walk you through the real deal, so we're going to sit here together and you can see the exact process that I go through to put up my episodes. This is me releasing a new episode. This is a real episode that's going on my show. While you wait for things to upload, you can go through, reread your show notes, make sure there are no typos. So look, I caught one right there. I want to change that around. So this is a good time to just go through, make sure you did not make any typos. Check in on the progress. Okay, almost done, 62%. And see if there's anything else you want to link to. Make sure that your links are correct and are linking to the right things, because you would hate to put a link in there and your listeners not be able to find it. Okay, a few more seconds left. And usually, fun fact, I also usually have about 3 different episode titles here because I like to play around with words and then finally settle on one. All right, so now my file is processing. That just takes a few more seconds. Okay, upload successful. So you close that message, then you head into details. Details, when you first open it up, will have some weird code in there. I don't know why, but I go ahead and delete that. And then I just copy and paste all of my show notes into that detail section and make sure the spacing came out correctly. There are no extra spaces if they don't have to be. And so, boom, this is how it will display in the podcast app. Artwork, I make sure that my episode artwork is there. To go back to details for a second, all of these tags and keywords, as this note explains, iTunes really no longer recognizes all of these tags and keywords here, so you can leave that field blank. Similar here, this will pull from the title that you've already put in when you have set up your podcast host, so no need to do any of this extra stuff. iTunes summary, that will pull from this description section, so you really would just be creating more work for yourself if you choose to fill out all these fields. Season number, episode number, same thing. Once again, you select update the ID3 tags, and you can learn more about that here. And then finally, once all of that is in place, you go ahead and you do your scheduling. So I always select media files are available based on my release schedule. I don't want any media files to be out there before or after I want them to be. So with my episodes, I always have them published on Wednesdays at 3 a.m. So I go in, and by the way, you can preset this. This I find a little bit therapeutic, so I go in and I do it each and every week, and don't just allow the presets to do their job. But at some point, when I feel like it, I might go in and do the presets again. But for now, I just like to go in and manually, quickly, because it takes about 2 seconds, go in and select where I want my episode to publish to and at what time. And this helps me to have no paranoia overnight that my episode accidentally released too early and I don't have my show notes up yet. So I select for it to be released everywhere. Now, some of these things you might not have in place. You have to set up a SoundCloud account so that the feed will go to SoundCloud. You obviously have to have a Libsyn Classic feed. You have to set up your Android. All of those things are walked through, but you get walked through once you set up your host. So once that's in place, you just pre-select, boom, 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 boom. And once you press publish, all of these get scheduled to go out to those different locations on the date and time that you select. And that is basically it, guys. Your episode is now being published, and you can just sit back and wait for it to arrive on publication day and get ready to promote tomorrow.